Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com, your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
All right, Chris Landry joining us now as we're going to talk a little bit of Tennessee defense, and in particular, we want to visit about Jeremy Banks. Remind you that this is brought to you, the Chalk Talk episode you're watching right at this very second is brought to you by The Mattress Place. The Mattress Place is incredible. No gimmicks, just 30 to 70% off every day. Look at their reviews. They are fantastic on Chapman Highway, 2 miles away from downtown Knoxville at The Mattress Place. So, Chris, Jeremy Banks, what level of superstardom can he achieve? Because I think everybody likes his raw potential that continues to get refined a little bit every year.
I think he's what I call a blue-gray player, which is kind of a top-shelf player in college ball, and I think he's got a good future both in college and beyond. He's rangy. He's very athletic. He takes good angles. He's got fluid hips. You know, he can get depth and width at the same time in coverage, which is what you want in today's game. Very productive tackler. He cleans things up very nicely, in their defense.
Yeah, he was on, a lot of people are this time of year, but he was just announced to be on the Butkus Award preseason watch list. Now, I know a lot of people make that list, but just as far as his game, what would you like him to see as far as the next step in becoming an even better player?
Just a little more consistent, maybe a little bit better against the run. You know, he sees a lot against the pass, but maybe being able to fill and force a little bit better against the run. He plays the space game very well. So things to do, he was never going to be a big thumper guy because that's not how he's built. But I think he can be someone that can come in and flathead a guy and show that he can stick his face in. I thought last year Tennessee's linebackers, with the injuries, the transfers, the inexperience, I thought it really limited what they could do and what they could call defensively. He was a cleanup tackler. I mean, I think he had 125, 130 tackles. I think he plays with a lot of intensity. I think the real key for him is to be able to kind of direct that defense a little bit more. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on the play of Aaron Beasley and Page and, Mitchell. I mean, those are the type of guys that the play around him, I think, is really important. I thought he freelanced a lot. I think doing things a little bit more within the context of how they want to run their defense. And he's a playmaker. So that's not going to change. But I think being a little bit more consistent playing where he doesn't freelance as much is going to help the overall defense out. And I freelanced a lot by design and by necessity last year.
When you say by design and by necessity, take me a little deeper into that. So are you saying they moved him around a lot because they pretty much had to?
They moved him around a lot, and a lot of times he just took it upon himself to change it and spill a play so that he can go out because he thought he was in better position to do it. In essence, I don't want to say this wrong because they would certainly deny this public. And I'm trying to think of a better way to say it. They didn't have the trust in their linebackers other than him to understand from a kid guy no standpoint. So not that he didn't trust the guys, that they weren't trustworthy. It's just he was the one guy that had a good feel for what they were doing. And so they allowed him to freelance more, which was good. And it's sometimes not so good. But when you've got a little bit more experience alongside of you, you can do a little more to where maybe other guys are making plays and your name's not getting called as much, but your overall defense and your overall plays better and more consistent. because one of the things that you do when you step out of your assignment into somebody else's, if you're wrong, then who's covering your assignment? And then you're wrong then. But sometimes it's only human nature in football to go out and make a play, where the key to great defense is to not go out and make a play. It's to go out and fulfill your assignment. Take care of your gap, take care of your responsibility, and trust your teammate. But that comes along with trust has to be earned, and that's kind of what I'm getting at there. It's just just not the consistent play on outside of him last year. That was a culprit.
Yeah. It'll be interesting athletically when you look at him. Where does he rank among the top athletic raw skills linebackers in the SEC?
Oh, he's in the top echelon. As I said, he's kind of what we call blue grade guys. Those that are followers of Landry football, we kind of grade according to colors, and we do that because we blue, red, purple, and it kind of designates what a guy is, so you can see from a color standpoint how guys stack up, each team, and he would be one of those guys. There's no question about it. And regardless of awards and here or there, he's really, really good. He's really capable athletically of doing special things, and I think he'll have a special year.
Interesting. The rest of the linebackers around him, who do you like? Who do you have concerns about?
Well, I have concerns about everybody to this point. It's not that I don't like him. Most of them are young guys, but I would say Beasley, Page, Mitchell are the guys that I'm most interested in following their development to play with Banks, because I think that's the complementary pieces that I think is going to be pivotal this year for them. Now, there's some younger guys that we've talked about, but they're not even on campus yet. But as to the future, I think that position is going to get upgraded. But I think there's some guys there now. Those are the guys that need to step up.
Are prospects? I know that offensive prospects are learned to the point that they want to go play with a quarterback. They're going to check the depth chart and all that sort of thing. But do you think that prospects look at Tennessee, defensive prospects look at Tennessee and say, because of this offense, I'm going to be running around with my tongue on the ground. I don't know that I want to be a part of this. Do you think that affects their decision making at all?
I think it does. I think what does affect it is what we've kind of talked about is this an offensive team that showcases their offense at the expense of their defense? That's what you've got to marry, and that's part of what the complementary style that I've talked about and hammered on a lot. That has to be expressed and explained correctly in the recruiting process of how important defense is and what our defensive identity is going to be. I don't question what their identity is. I'm not saying what it is. I'm just saying that's what kids will question, and what Josh and his staff have got to get in front of the recruits and say. But based upon recent recruiting efforts, they've done a pretty good job. They've gotten some pretty good defensive players to come. So I think if it's an obstacle, they've been able to overcome it. Look at the program right now that's the best in the country at recruiting defensive players is Georgia. Why? That's a defensive team. You come here, you're going to be a star. You come here, you're going to be a high pick. You're going to be focused. This is our identity. Most everybody else is kind of more, even Alabama. They've got a little bit more of a focus. And Alabama may have their best defense they've had in years. They recruited a kind of a different level. But they've even become more. I mean, look at Alabama recently. When if you go back years, when have they had this many quarterbacks and receivers drafted at Alabama? My God, it's like they're quarterback U and wide receiver U now. I mean, that didn't happen. They didn't have they had the McElroys and guys like that. A.J. McCarron types, and they didn't have those type of guys. Now it's like Well, they still get good defensive players. What Tennessee's got to be able to do is kind of convince guys, this is the type of style of defense we want to play. We're going to get you ready for the NFL. You're going to play a lot, but you're going to be featured a lot too, because I think that's what players want. They want to be stars. They want to get the notoriety. They want to have, I think, the headline. So I think some of the guys that we've talked about on the defensive side, as they develop on the defensive line, linebacker, and the secondary, that's what you want, is to have, you got to get good players to show that we can develop good players, and they're going to go on to have great careers, and we're going to be a good defense. It's a chicken egg thing, right? I mean, you got to have that to show that so that you can go out and recruit it. But to this point, they've been able to sell it pretty good because they've got some good players that they've got recruits from on defensively in the future. Are they recruiting Alabama and Georgia type defensive players as a whole group? No, not even close to that at this point. But baby steps, they're starting to get there. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, baby steps is a good way of putting it. I don't know that I would want Tim Banks's job, the defensive coordinator at Tennessee, because of the offense that he has to see on the other side of the field, scoring points in like 2.3 milliseconds. But I think he's a really solid coach. It's just hard for me to judge him as a coordinator because of the offense. What do you think of him as a coach? Not only what he did last year, just in general, an overall thumbnail of what you think of him as a coach.
Well, he's a good coach, and the way you evaluate him is how well does this team get off on third downs? How many turnovers do they generate? Because that's what that job is. Look, I've been around coaches that, and you just hit on something. It is really tough, and it's tough to advance your career when you're labeled as an offensive team and the defense. Think about the Big 12. People made fun of the Big 12, scored a mile a minute. It's like all of a sudden it's, your job, if you're Tim or you're somebody that's running a defense, it's, can you hold a team to 40 points while your offense scores 50? Well, what are people going to say? They're going to say, well, that offense is good enough. We can just fix out the defense. It's because you're running a mile a minute, you're going to give up 40 points. Giving up 40 points when you're, having to defend 80 snaps a game, that's what's going to happen. So it is difficult. And so that's why I think, to the dynamic of recruiting players that want to play there, it's about having coaches too that understand that and put the ego aside. Because offensive coaches want to do what? They want to score a bunch of points because they're the offensive genius and they get the head coaching jobs. Well, defensive coaches want to do the same thing. They want to stop people and they want to keep the point total low so they can go. Dan Lanning got a job. He's the head coach at Oregon. Why? He's at Georgia. Great defense. But if it's just, if you think about it, Kirby Smart, he's a genius guy. He's a genius. He got the job at Georgia. They want to run a defensive coordinator out of Alabama right now. Why? Because they're not stopping, but because their offense is going at a faster pace. So you're not going to have the same numbers that Jeremy Pruitt or Kirby Smart had when they were defensive coordinator at Alabama. So, yeah, a lot of times you do a good job, but the job is different. So, when you're based upon how your offense plays. So I think it is difficult, and I think he does a good job. But I think defining his job is much different, and you can't define it by, oh yeah, we scored 60 points, but we're giving up 25 or 30. We got to, well, you're not going to cut it down to holding them to 10 or 15 points unless the offense that you're playing stinks and can't score. That's just a reality.
Yep. No, that's very well put for Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. Go to LandryFootball.com to learn more about the NFL, college, or recruiting than you ever imagined you could. That's LandryFootball.com. I'm Dave Hooker. Again, brought to you by The Mattress Place. The Mattress Place is your home for a fantastic thing to lay on, and that is a mattress from the Mattress Place. It's 30 to 70% off. That's no gimmicks. That's just how they do business. And they're 2 miles from Henley Street. So they're right next to downtown. If you're moving in or you got a kid moving in, this is a great place to go ahead and take care of the mattress issue. Make sure they're comfortable while they're at school. So the Mattress Place, again, on Chapman Highway, very easy to find. For Chris, I'm Dave. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.